In today's video lesson, we are going to look at how you can sound more like a pro and less like an amateur by using next level string bends. Now, I think I might have an idea what many of you might be thinking after clicking on this video. You might be thinking, okay, look, I know how to bend strings, all right? I don't need a lesson on how to bend strings on my guitar. Most folks who have been playing electric guitar for a little while have done at least some bending of strings. However, many electric guitar players come to me with complaints about their own playing. I literally hear this pretty much all day, every day. They'll say, when I play a solo, it doesn't sound like music. When I play a solo, it sounds like I'm just going up and down scales. How do I fix that? I would say string bends are probably one of the biggest tools you have in your arsenal to sound really great in electric guitar. When I listen to a lot of students soloing on their electric guitar, or when folks send me clips of their playing, it looks like folks are just kind of bending strings because it feels like one ought to bend strings once in a while if they're playing a solo. And I'm not trying to be mean or bash anybody. Like, I mean, these are just normal phases of guitar playing I went through too. But hey, we can learn some techniques and practice in a smart way, and we can really elevate our lead playing by applying exactly what I'm going to show you today. Seriously, if you can get string bends really dialed in and have them be a really working part of your arsenal, you're going to sound great. To get the most out of today's video, ideally you know a bit about bending strings already. You've kind of got the technique down. So I hopefully don't have to fully explain what the technique of bending strings entails. You should also be familiar with what half whole steps and 1.5 step bends mean. Those just refer to the number of semitones that the pitch of your note is increasing by when you bend the string. So if you're playing a given note and you bend up a half step, the actual pitch will be going up by 1 semitone. If you bend up a full step, the pitch is going to be going up by 2 semitones. And if you're bending by 1.5 steps, the pitch will be going up by 3 semitones. I think most likely a good number of people watching this video might be in the boat of having solid technique on string bends, like you can push the string up without any issue, but your bends might be a little bit inconsistent. Like, in other words, you might bend and it sounds kind of like out of tune sometimes. If that's you, this video is actually exactly what you want. These techniques I'm going to show you are the perfect thing for you to be practicing. We are going to be mixing in some basic music theory within our discussion today. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to be playing in the key of A minor, and my examples are predominantly going to be using the A minor pentatonic scale and the A blues scale. The pentatonic scale is behind a lot of the classic sounds that you hear. And the beautiful thing with the pentatonic scale is that we have 5 notes in it. And the fact is, if we can elevate our guitar technique to make those 5 notes sound expressive, lyrical, and dynamic, when you throw in this, you go for the big 7-note scales, major, minor, modes, you're just going to have so many colors at your fingertips, and that's where you're really going to start to enjoy playing the electric guitar. So what today's lesson is really going to look like is I'm basically going to give you 5 licks that all involve string bending to some degree. Now, because this is kind of neat, because the pentatonic scale consists of 5 notes, I am going to give you 1 lick where we bend up to each unique interval of the pentatonic scale. Why 5 licks going in each way? If you can't squeeze the most emotion out of every unique degree or interval in the scale, you're kind of leaving some guitar playing greatness on the table. So by practicing approaching each unique tone in the scale with a string bend, arguably the most lyrical, expressive way to play a note on the electric guitar, we're going to get really good at bending strings. We're going to get some creative new ways of bending strings. And also, we're really going to have some well-rounded usage of this simple pentatonic scale. Now, people say the pentatonic scale is easy to use, and yes, it's true. It's a relatively low barrier to entry just to kind of get set up and start noodling through it. But I'm telling you, to really milk the pentatonic scale and get that emotion from it like a master, That is not easy, and that takes practice. It's one of the most sought after musical skills ever because it just sounds damn cool. And that's what we're gonna be working on today. Let's dive in. I hope you have a great time. Here we go. Okay, so example 1, I am going to be executing a string bend up to the root note of the A minor pentatonic scale, which is gonna be an A note, of course. But I'm gonna do it on the G string, specifically on the 12th fret of the G string. Bending up to the root note is a tried and true method of sounding kick-ass on guitar. So let's try this one out. Hopefully you like it. Okay, so taking a look at example 1, and this first one uses some triplets, 8th note triplets, to get a bit of an interesting sort of bounce to the rhythm. So I'm actually starting by hammering on the 10th and 12th frets of the A string, and that's a quick little grace note. In other words, this 10th fret, the note that I hammer on from, it has no rhythmic significance. It's just a quick little blip, and possibly a topic, grace notes, for a future video. Anyway, I'm then playing frets 10 and 12 on the D string, and just for reference, this 12th fret on the A string, this previous, that is our root note. That's an A note. So we have, and then I have to kind of hop over a little bit here. I'm onto the G string, and I'm playing 8 and 9 on the G string, and those I'm playing intervallically. I'm playing a flat 5th, which is the blues note, making this part of the A blues scale. So frets 8 and 9. I play another root note on the 10th fret of the B string. And then after that, I just hit, I haven't actually lifted my middle finger, which was playing the 9th fret of the 3rd string. I haven't actually lifted that finger off yet. So I can kind of go right back to it. I should phrase slightly differently that my middle finger does lift off just a touch off the string, just enough to kind of quiet, just so the string doesn't buzz out and I have this double stop. Not that there really be anything wrong with that, but just to kind of control the dynamics there. And then the string bend is happening on the 12th fret of the G string, and I'm bending up to the A string. The second half of the lick involves me kind of cycling up the B string within the A minor pentatonic scale. I'm using pull-offs. I'm going so 13th fret to the 10th fret, position shift up, 15th fret to the 13th fret, position shift up, 17th fret to the 15th fret, another pull-off, and then lastly it's going to be from the 20th fret to the 17th fret, and I'm going to bend up to another root note. So both of these, both of these are both root notes, and you don't necessarily, you can certainly play this exact, you can lift this exact lick and use it in your solos. You're not always going to like bend to a root and then bend to a root. You can mix it up. I'm sort of just keeping them together or in a way that's organized so that you really get your ears saturated with the sound of bending up to the root note or bending up to the flat third or whichever interval we happen to be on. So there's that one for you. Example 2, I'm going to be bending up to the flat third of the minor pentatonic scale. Now, the flat third is what we call a stable scale tone. In other words, it works as a killer note to sort of emphasize or land on when we're playing soloing licks. In this flat third based string bending lick, I'm going to be bending up to the flat third on the B string. And I'll be tossing in a couple quick notes from the A blues scale as well. Okay, example 2, We have more of a 16th note type rhythm here. There's kind of some interesting, almost got a little bit of an accent type feel to it. This it kind of hits you with a little bit of an unexpected twist. But I'm actually starting from the flat third of the A minor pentatonic scale. That's the 5th fret of the G string, a C note. I'm going, and what I'm just doing there, I'm hitting that 5th fret of the 3rd string, and I'm kind of lightly palm muting the D string just with my sort of my wrist there. And by doing this, I do a hammer on. I go 5th fret of the G, 7th fret of the D, and then I hit with the palm mute, and I hit the 5th fret of the D, and I hammer on back to the 7th fret of the D. Now I'm going to be back to where I started. I'm going to hit that 5th fret of the G string, and I'm going to hammer on to the 7th fret of the 3rd string, and I'm going to slide up by 2 frets. So I'm all the way in the 9th fret of the 3rd string. So I've got, and I'm kind of going to repeat that sort of scale cycle idea where I'm going to use my middle finger to hit the 8th fret of the 2nd string. And it's a similar kind of sequence where after I hit that 8th fret of the 2nd string, I use my ring finger to get the 9th fret of the 3rd string. I'm not palm muting really at this point. I'm not really palm muting on that G string. And then I'm just going to pick the 7th fret of the G string, the 7th fret of the G string, and hammer back on to the 9th fret. So I've got, and now it's time for the big bend. So I'm going to go up to the B string. I have to kind of position shift over by 1 fret here because when I was on the G string, my index finger was getting the 7th fret. Now my index finger is going to take the 8th fret of the 2nd string, and I'm hammering onto the 10th fret of the B string. Now this is a big bend. This is a 1.5 step bend. So I use 3 fingers to get that. And the way I do that is I've got my ring fingers on the 10th fret of the B string. That's the actual fret we're bending from. My middle finger and index finger are both planted on the B string on the 9th and 8th frets respectively. I don't bunch my fingers up when I do this. Like I don't just cram them together. I actually kind of have them set up on the different frets. So the idea is if not that I'm going to do this, but if I wanted to just play 10, 9, 8, like I could do that. And I feel by doing that rather than bunching your fingers together like across like sort of 1.5 frets, I feel by spreading them out, you kind of remain a bit more agile and you can nimbly move to different sequences and notes after that. So we got, and then I'm gonna bring, and this is tough, I'm gonna let this bend come back down from the flat third, which is the kind of the peak that we hit. I'm going to hit the 10th fret of the 2nd string, and I'm going to just descend 9, 8, 7 down that G string, and I'm throwing in that 8th fret on the G string, which is the flat 5th, which is the blues note. So that really makes this kind of like an A blues scale example rather than just strictly A minor pentatonic. The lick ends on the flat third again, so you really get the sound of that interval, hopefully in your ears. And this little, where I'm going from the 7th fret of the G, hammering on and pulling off to and from the blues note, or the flat 5th, and then landing on that 10th fret of the D string, gets you a really nice sound. Yeah. Example 3, I'm going to be bending up to the perfect 4th of the A minor pentatonic scale, which is going to be a D note. We talked about the root and flat third already. Those two are both, we call stable scale degrees. Landing on an unstable scale degree, such as the 4th, has a function of building tension in your solo. Okay, so the next example, we are going to be bending up to the perfect 4th. I've always loved the sound of using string bends to reach unstable scale degrees. I think it really adds a lot of color to your playing. Just a word for the wise there. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with my ring finger on the 15th fret of the A string, So still within the same A minor pentatonic, A blues kind of mode here. Don't get that confused with the the theory modes. So I'm hitting that 15th fret, and I'm gonna do a quick hammer-on sequence, frets 12, 13, and 14 on the D string. I pick 12, hammer on 13 and 14. Then I have to actually, this is a pretty technical lick, I'm doing a string skip. I'm hitting that 13th fret of the second string. That's actually the flat third right there. You can kind of hear how it's got a bit of a brighter, sort of happier singing sort of sound. Then there's this, and what that is I'm using my ring finger to pick 15 on the B string, sliding up by 1 fret, sliding back down, and then pulling off to 13. And now so far I've got, now this next little maneuver I'm going to mention, this is a little bit of a side note. This is a really helpful skill to have. Watch what I do here. Notice I have the dexterity and agility to play a little lick instantly, or near instantly, position shift down, in this case by 2 frets, and then hit that full step bend. That now, and I'm not saying that that's the world's greatest lick or anything like that, but when I do that, it sounds much more vocal than a lot of licks I could play in this area of the fretboard, if you kind of catch my meaning there. So, and in the example, I also, just because that is an unstable note, and while you could certainly linger on that bend, just milk that. I also opted to bring it down, bring the perfect fourth down, and end on that root note there, just so we hear a little bit of that sort of sound. Okay, next up, we are going to be bending up to the perfect fifth. Now, the perfect fifth is the third stable scale tone in the minor pentatonic scale. If the triplets in the first example weren't enough for you, we have some 16th note triplets this time around. It's just a series of quick descending hammer-ons. I'm on the high E string, I pick 12, and then hammer on to 15, move down to 10, and then hammer on to 12, then move down to 8, and then pick to 10. Kind of a neat little cascading way down the scale. And then there's this little phrase here. That's 10, 8, 10 on the B string, and then 8 on the high E string, and then 10, 8 again on the B string. So. And there's that big bend there. I'm bending, again, 3 fingers, and I'm bending up the 10th fret of the first string. I am bending to the perfect fifth. It's a very almost like iconic sounding string bend, not my bend specifically, but just hitting that note. It's got a really, it just screams. It really is a great sound, especially when you combine it with a little bit of fleet-fingered, motions. I think it really brings the lick together. And to finish this one off, what it is I'm bending, I've got the 3 fingers again, I'm bending up to the perfect fifth, but it's pretty quick. I'm bending up and then down, and you hear the note go up and down. Remember the previous video, in previous weeks, we looked at doing these quick sort of staccato choppy bends. That's not what this is. We're hearing the note go up and come down. If I do it in slow motion, then I hit the 8th fret of the second string, 8th fret of the first string, 10, 8 on the B string. This is 9, 7, 5 on the G string, and then 7 on the G, and I'm going to do another bend to the perfect fifth. So you got the two bends that use the perfect fifth tone, one up here and one down here. There you have it. Example 5, we are going to be bending up to the flat 7th degree of the minor pentatonic scale. That is going to be a G note. You got to do one of those big 1.5 step bends. We actually did one when we were bending up to the flat 3rd. Check it out. This next lick might be the most technically challenging one out of the 5. This is the example where we bend up to the flat 7. Similar to previous ideas, I'm bending to the flat 7th twice in this example. What I do is I start on the 10th fret of the D string. I've got my ring finger there. I'm going to pick that note. Now I'm gonna do this nice sort of blues walk up sort of phrase where I'm gonna pick 7, hammer on to 8 and 9 on the G string. So I've got. Now here's my first flat 7 bend, and it is a 1.5 step bend. I would recommend having 3 fingers down when you carry this one out. I then kind of descend down that lick, and now it's kind of it's sort of an interesting weave through the pentatonic scale. And what that is I'm using a combination of hammer-ons and slides. I'm going that's 7, 8, 9 on the G string with hammer-ons, slide up to 12 on the G string. Then I'm going to go into the B string, and I'm going to pick 10, hammer on to 13, slide up to 15, slide up to 17, and now I'm on the perfect 5th right now. I can bend up to the flat 7th. And then this little ending that's 17, this is that same blues sort of phrase we did before. It's that same one up here, just the same idea, an octave higher. So it's, I'm gonna play that's 17, 16, 15, then 17 on the G string, and then lastly that's me picking 16 on the B string, pulling off to 15, and then finishing on 17 of the G string. There we go. 5 string bending licks to push the boundaries of your lyrical expressive lead playing. I sincerely hope this was enjoyable and informative for you. If it was, feel free to leave me a like or comment. Like I say, we're just building this channel up. Every little bit really does help. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you really soon with a new video. Cheers.